Hi everyone, my name is Glenda with SureFit Designs, sometimes referred to as Glenda the Good Stitch. In this Make It Sew beginner series, the next thing I'm going to focus on is some of the internal things that need to happen when you're sewing a garment together, and things like sewing darts and pleats, and that's going to be the focus of the next 3 videos. In the last video, I talked about layout, cutting, and marking. Now, one thing I would like to make sure you do is go and look at an article that I've prepared for you in the Learning Center. And the Learning Center address is very easy. It's sfdlearningcenter.com. And then click on Article Library. And then when you're in the article library, look for S.7, where you're going to see an article that is on sewing, construction, and general guidelines. Now that article is going to help you put your garment together when you don't have a construction guide sheet. And so as we continue on in this short video, I am going to talk about stitching darts. This first video is going to be about the dart that comes from an open seam edge and then goes to a point in your body. Now, there is that kind of dart. In fact, let's take a look at this mannequin. When we look at this mannequin here and the garment that's on it, here is the basic kind of dart where the dart intake is at the seam and then it goes to a single point towards the full area of your body. So it could be a bust fitting dart or a hip fitting dart. And then a second kind of dart is a double-ended dart, and I'll cover that one in the next video. And then the third video will be on stitching pleats. And so let's first of all take a look at this dart that's already been marked, which of course is what I did in the last video. And I'm going to show you 2 ways to stitch and prepare this dart. And so we did mark the fold line, and as I said before, this is called the dart intake. So we're going to take it in like this and stitch to a point. And as we do that, of course, we're folding the fabric. And of course, the whole purpose of a dart is to take a flat, one-dimensional piece of fabric and conform it into a 3-dimensional form to fit over your body, because your body is 3-dimensional. So when we start looking at stitching a dart, you're going to fold the right sides of the fabric together, and you're going to fold it in such a manner so that the bulk of your fabric is away from your sewing machine. And so when you start pinning, all that you're going to be putting under your sewing machine is this triangular piece of the dart right here. And there are a couple of different ways to pin it. But what's important is that when you start pinning, that your pin goes through from this dart marking on that side of the fold through to the dart marking on the other side of the fold. Now, I didn't look when I started pinning, so let's see how close I was. And that actually turned out quite perfectly. So I'm not going to move that pin, but it's really important that when you put your pins in, that you do pin exactly from this marked dart stitching line. That's one of the legs of the dart, and it needs to go in straight through to the mark on the other side. And that pin didn't. So now it means I'm going to remove the pin, and I'm simply going to just manipulate the fabric in my fingers just a little bit, and now you can see that that pin is coming right out where my dart marking is. And then I'm going to simply pin on that stitching line. So again, that's right on the stitching line. And then the last pin that I'm going to do is going to be right at the tip of the dart, right here. And that's why we made that little cross mark. So now when you start stitching, it's easiest to start stitching from the wide end, from the open end of the dart. So I'm going to put this under the sewing machine and make sure that your sewing machine is set on 12 stitches per inch, which is regular stitch length. I've lowered the needle into the dart I'm going to lower the presser foot, and I'm going to remove that first pin. And then I'm going to start stitching. Now at this point you can back stitch, so I'll take just a couple of stitches and I'll put my machine into reverse and back stitch and then continue forward. And then stitch slowly if this is the first time you've ever done a dart. And before you get to that next pin, make sure you remove it and then continue stitching. And as you near the end of the dart, what is so important is that you stitch right off and keep going in a straight line. It's when this end starts to bend and curl that you get a pucker at the end, and I actually sewed one with that so you can see how it looks, and it doesn't look that good. So your objective is to stitch off that fold, keep going as straight as you possibly can, and when I get to the tip, I'm going to remove that pin. And now this is one way to finish a dart, and that is to simply keep stitching off the end. And a lot of our machines will stitch without fabric underneath. And what this is doing is twisting the threads together. And you should be able to see those twisted threads right here. And then I'm just going to take those threads and pull them. Now, that's one way to finish a dart, and just leave those threads hanging. Or you can take those threads and you can actually tie them. And the next dart I'm going to do is going to show you a different way. Now let's take a look at the other side, and that was pretty darn close. I did miss a little bit up there, but as I stitched down here, I was exactly on the line. I would likely leave that dart because I think it will be absolutely fine. So now let's go to the other side of the bodice. And again, you want to make sure that when you are folding this and pinning it, that you're going to fold it in the orientation where the bulk of the fabric is away from the sewing machine. Now, before I showed you how to pin the darts along the stitching line, this time I'm going to show you how to pin it with the darts so that they are at right angles to the stitching line. So I'm putting my needle in, and I'm off the marking on this side, so I'm going to take and just manipulate that dart just a hair, and now I'm pretty darn close. And I'm going to pin, and you can see that I'm pinning at a right angle to the marked line. This is actually my preferred way. I just wanted to show you that other way in case that's what you prefer. Again, as my pin comes through, I'm exactly on the line that I marked for my dart stitching position. And here, I'll likely put in one more dart, one more pin, and again, I'm right on the line, and it really is important to be checking that. And then my last pin is going to go right at this cross mark where I know is the tip of the dart. And now again, I will start at the wide end of the dart, and I am going to take a couple of stitches, back stitch, whoops, go into reverse there we go, and then it will go forward. And I always do like to remove the pins prior to stitching over them, just to prevent my sewing machine needle from breaking or from it catching on the edge of a pin and marring both the needle and the pin. So you can see that I'm going slowly. And again, if you haven't sewn darts before, please make sure you just take your time. Now I'm going to stitch right off at that dart tip. Now this time I'm going to take about 3 or 4 stitches, one more, and then what I'm going to do is lift the presser foot. I'm going to pull the dart towards me like this, and I'm going to get right in the space in between where I've stitched and where the folded edge of the dart is, and I'm going to lower the needle down in that space, and then I'm going to take about 2 or 3 stitches like that, and then I'm going to raise the presser foot and remove this. This doesn't need to be tied. It can stay just like this, and I've got a nice crisp point there. And how did I do on the other side? That looks really good. I'm right on the stitching and the marked stitching line. Okay, now that I've got those two darts stitched, now we need to look at pressing them. And because you have now taken a one-dimensional piece of fabric and conformed it into a three-dimensional piece, it is not best to press on a flat surface. What really needs to happen is you need to press over a tailor's ham, which is what I'm going to do in a moment. But before I get there, if you don't have a tailor's ham, this is the best way to do it. We're going to take the dart, and you take the bulk of the dart, and you're going to fold it down. But before I do that, you do what is called melding the thread into the fabric. So the dart is flat, and I'm just making sure that the thread is melded into the fabric. Notice that I'm not pressing off the tip. That's important because I don't want this crease to go beyond the tip that I've just sewn. And then, again, if you don't have a tailor's ham, what you can then do is take your iron and press up to the tip of the dart, but not beyond, like that. And I've got this piece of tracing vellum here because I wanted to show you that sometimes our dart folded edge can show through to the other side, just depending on the thickness of your fabric. So what you can do is take a piece of your leftover tracing vellum and slide it underneath like that and use it as kind of a cushion so that you're not forming a ridge on the right side of your fabric. That was just a little tip that I wanted to share with you. Now, again, if you don't have a tailor's ham, then you're going to take your fabric now and pull it out as flat as you can in this area and press around the tip of the dart. Excuse me, I'm banging into the sewing machine there. All right, that is not ideal, but it does work if that's all that you've got. Now, let me show you working with a tailor's ham. This tailor's ham is all conformed to the curves and shape of darts that you're going to be sewing. So once again, before I put the curvature over the ham, I'm going to meld the thread into the fabric, and now I'm going to take this dart, or the fabric I should say, and I'm going to open it up and I'm going to press it so that the dart tip is right on the tip of the pointed end of the ham, like this. And this is the proper way to press a dart. You spent tedious moments getting your dart stitched to fit your body, and you can see how beautifully that now ends up being. There's no pucker, it's beautiful. You can also press it again from the wrong side. You could do the wrong side first and then the right side second. It doesn't really matter. But what's important is that you press over this tailor's ham so that you don't get a pucker at the other end. And you can see that that's beautiful. Now, to do this one, which does have a pucker here, it's because I didn't have the ham to press it over top of. Let me put that back in place, and you'll see the difference now in how this looks. And this ham makes a huge, huge difference. And I think I mentioned in one of our previous videos, having the correct tools to do your sewing project, to sew your sewing project, is so important. And there you can see how nicely that now is sitting. And so the last thing that I wanted to show you about this style of dart, and you kind of saw it when I was pressing there, is here is a dart where I didn't sew off the end, and I did this specifically to show you the problem. I didn't sew right to the tip, and you can see how I started to stitch outside in a bit of a curvature there, and then I came off at more of a curved point rather than a straight sharp point on the fold. And when I open that up, you can see that bubble right there. And that bubble will never go away, even pressing it over top of a tailor's ham. And that's because I didn't stitch the tip properly. So practice sewing these darts. They're really important to do. So many of our garments have darts in them. And the dart, of course, is going to add shaping to the fabric to conform to your body. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to do the double-ended dart. I would invite you to join the SureFit Designs community, and you can do that very, very easily. Number one, make sure to join the SureFit Designs newsletter. You'll find that on my website at surefitdesigns.com. Go to the bottom of almost any page and you'll see our sign-up form. And when you do, you're going to get some free gifts to get you started. Number two, make sure that you do like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that when I post new videos, you'll become aware of them. And that's just not surefitdesigns.com. SureFit Designs is my YouTube channel. And then please join our Facebook group. All you need is a Facebook page, and you're welcome to put in your application and we will approve you, and then you'll be able to communicate with others around the globe who are interacting with one another, showing their SureFit Designs garments, asking questions, and in general, having fun with SureFit Designs. I do welcome you to join us.